Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always. And today we are joined by Cindy Johnson, designer, goldsmith, plus a longtime friend of mine for something like 20 plus years. Cindy specializes in repairs plus custom design jewelry in silver, gold, platinum, palladium, and bronze. She also creates work in oil paint, photography, and sculpture. I first met Cindy at the Junior Chamber of Commerce back when I was a teen doing a co-op at a high school with her friend Lindsay Fair with Market Me and BizBound. Cindy has been through thick and thin. She's seen me through the same. And I wanted to get Cindy on here to talk about her life, business, and what it takes to thrive in the business of art. As each year, she has a lineup of people eager to get her custom work and her magic hands on their precious family heirlooms. So Cindy, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. Nice to see you, Daryl.
I know, it's so good.
It has been a long time, realizing I've known you half your life.
Yeah, I know. And like in Matt and the junior, I wish, anyway, we'll talk. I remember that speech that we gave for the junior. I think you gave a speech too, right? Everybody was giving.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I had to give my speech at nationals after.
Really?
I did.
What? I didn't.
Yeah.
I want the recording of mine. I was so proud of mine. Deborah Lefebvre, Stop in Time, superhero. Anyways, before we get into all of that, I want to ask, how did you even get started in business and running your own business? Do you come from a family of entrepreneurs? Were your parents entrepreneurs?
My parents were entrepreneurs. They ran a catering business. My grandmother ran a couple of stores in Montreal before I was born. She taught lessons, ceramic lessons, as well as owned a fabric store. So it was in my blood. I wasn't afraid of it. But I was working for a store here in Kingston that had been open for 98 years. And they suddenly announced with 8 weeks notice that they were closing. And I had just signed a mortgage about 48 hours before I received that information. So it was one of those sink or swim moments. And that's how I went into business.
Did you feel like your parents tried to prepare you for business? And how?
I think because my parents were able to be available to my sister and I, because it was a home-based business. We had an industrial kitchen in the basement of our house. And so they were home for, my mother would feed 350 people at 7 a.m. and then get my sister and I up for school and feed us every day. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So I guess there's a lot of even soft skills that you see demonstrated and almost an expectation perhaps on you. Do you feel like expectations on you maybe were different than kids you grew up with that didn't have parents that were go-getter-esque?
No, I don't think they had expectations.
Okay.
I think because I was the artsy kid, I don't know that they had any idea what to do with me. My sister wanted to study business, and my sister is an accountant. And I think that made more sense to my parents. I don't think they knew what to do with me.
Right. It seems you made it. All right. So you were working and then they said they were closing down. So how did you launch your business? How did you go from zero to up and running and thriving?
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about business planning or any of the number part of the things. I just wanted to create pretty things.
Right.
So I was able to enroll in a 1-month intensive business course, which was also sponsored through. So I was eligible for EI anyway, but it funded this course. And so within 2 months, I was opening my store.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I leased a place nearby. I had existing clientele because I had been a goldsmith at Kinnear de Stair Jewelers for 6 years previous. So I thought, I had pondered about returning to school and going into teaching, but I thought entrepreneurship, I'd always dreamed of owning my own business. And I thought I had an existing clientele. This is probably the best time.
So was it just smooth sailing? Like you opened up and it was just sunshine and rainbows?
Oh my goodness, no.
Yeah. So what were some of the biggest challenges? Like what
biggest challenges? I think I didn't know how to advertise. I didn't know how to let everyone know that I was going to be carrying on. So that was a bit of a challenge. I spent a lot of money on advertising the first few years. And then maybe by the second or third year, I spent thousands and thousands in the first few years. And then by the time I was rolling maybe 3 years in, I was spending very little on advertising, and it was all word of mouth, which was really great. One thing I did learn from my parents running their own business was offering excellent customer service.
Yeah, especially in today's day and age with transparency, like you can't, the days of selling snake oil and then disappearing into the shadows are up. It's just such a transparent world. I think that's a fantastic, because especially if you want to be in business long term, I always say this, even if you don't have an ethical bone in your body, even if secretly you're like this evil character, if you want to be in business long term, you have to treat everyone as best as you can, like your staff, your vendors, your customers. That's the only way you're going to make it long term. So even if secretly you're a scoundrel, you just got to take care of people. Otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
In my line of work, I'm repairing and restoring family heirlooms. So not only expensive items, but priceless items as far as sentimentalities.
Hey, sorry, I melted this thing down. It wasn't important to you, was it?
I
made a gold brick for you. Is that okay?
Yeah, so building relationship is very important. And I know there's a lot of Dateline type shows where they warn people of people switching stones and that kind of thing. So I have had clients before that if they felt uncomfortable, then I just let them know I feel uncomfortable as well, and to make that they should find someone else that they feel good about.
I love that.
And explaining my family's here and my life is here and I'm raising a child here. And if I was a criminal or going to scam anyone, not really my interest.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I think that's a really valid point. Glad you brought that up, because some people don't address that. And you mentioned advertising. You didn't know how to advertise. One of the biggest hurdles in advertising is believability, because everyone's putting out such a big claim. People don't believe it, or they believe maybe, okay, and you got these results for those people, but I don't believe it will work for me. I don't believe it's appropriate for me. So that confidence, that believability is a really important thing. Can you talk about
and then building trust with your clients and having them recommend you was the basis of my business for sure. 100%. Having someone that did the work in town, didn't ship it anywhere. I was the only one who ever touched their jewelry. I didn't send it out. I didn't have any employees. I didn't want someone else doing it. I don't want to explain to another goldsmith what needs to be done. I want to make sure it's done right and it's done.
Now, you did touch on a subject there, which I want to kind of ask some questions about. I know I think months ago I asked you about it. Is that part of the business as well? Not obviously doing repairs and the jewelry work, but buying and selling commodities. You're handling gold. Is that something that is part of the business to a certain extent, or is that something that you've had interest in since you're dealing with gold? Like, because that's...
I melt down old pieces for clients, but as far as buying and selling gold, no.
No. Oh, okay. I remember I asked you before, I was like, how do I get into buying and selling gold? And I said this thing, you're like, that's not going to work, Daryl. I was like, you just put some drops on this thing and you rub it and it tells you, like, Daryl, you're gonna get so ripped off. Don't mess with that.
They have really fascinating assay machines where they will melt. So you'll have a bunch of old jewelry and you won't necessarily know what all the heritage of all of it is. So you melt it all down and you make an ingot, and then there's a machine with a laser and it will spit out a printout of the percentage of every metal going that's in that ingot, which is really fascinating.
That is fascinating. Actually, my Hendrik, the man that raised me, he worked in geophysics, so mining exploration. So they would do that sort of thing, but out in the bush. You would map out like a mile by a mile area with copper wire and connect it to a power generator, and then walk inside measuring the rate of decay of the electricity through it. And then they would drill a borehole like a kilometer down, pull it up, put it on the table and analyze what's in there. And based off that, kind of reverse engineer the rate of decay through the soil and different parts to figure out what is where to help direct the miners where to dig. That's a oversimplification perhaps, but technology is fantastic. So, all right. So first you were struggling with how to advertise and learning how to talk to existing customers. So how did you figure those out? How do you approach those? Do you have a...
Yeah, I think just over time, and like I said, word of mouth. One satisfied customer turns into 2, and those 2 turn into 6 and over again. Right. And then I didn't need to advertise at all. And then I was into time management issues of being really busy, and
which is a good problem to have.
It's nice. Yeah. And at this point, some clients that I made their engagement and wedding bands, now their kids are getting married and their kids are coming to me.
Wow.
And I have to keep it quiet because it's a surprise. So I make an engagement ring and can't say anything. And
that's so nice.
Yeah, it's nice that I've had many clients who turned into personal friends, and watching them raise families. It's rewarding work.
And when did you get into doing different exhibitions? I know you've been displaying your art all over. Right now, from what the story you've told us, it's like I had some clients, I decided to launch, and I did great work, and I built a community around me, and I did work with integrity. I went above and beyond to make sure my customers felt comfortable and would trust me. But I also know that you've got, I don't want to say fame, you've been around and you've had your work shown all over. Where does that come in? Like, why even do that then?
After closing my retail store and having my daughter, I shifted into creating jewelry and then selling it at different shows and exhibitions. My next goal is to attend the One of a Kind show in Toronto. That's a goal of mine. Yeah.
And you do your custom ornaments, right? Like you've got stuff every year you sell those out. Where did that idea come from?
That idea started at Kinnear Desir Jewelers in the late 70s. And so they had been selling them, gosh, they were probably 20 years in when the store was closing. And the very first phone call we received after announcing the store was closing was, but what about the ornaments? And I really loved making them. So I've kept the tradition going. And now I've been making them for 20 years.
Wow.
On my own. So yeah, the collection's almost as old as I am. It's older than you, Daryl.
Is that maybe making me feel yeah, anyways. So what would you recommend to someone that's listening to this and maybe they're starting out or struggling? Would you have any tips as someone who's been through, I mean, you were through 2008, you've been through a lot of thick and thin. Would you recommend to someone that's, hey, I'm going to put out a shingle and start my business? You got any tips for them?
I think it's different now because when I started, everyone was still brick and mortar. Websites were just starting. Mm-hmm. Now I would say you'd really need to know what you're doing to be online. And perhaps even starting online first, as opposed to brick and mortar. Every gallery that's used to sell my work since the pandemic has closed permanently.
Wow.
Because a lot of people just don't shop that way anymore. So pop-up shops are popular, but brick and mortars and galleries like that. That's an interesting
concept. I had a friend of mine from the States come visit here in the Philippines recently, and we were at this mall. We met because he was flying in and out in Manila. It's called Greenbelt. And he was saying, I feel like I'm in America in the 80s because the malls here are so full. And he's saying the malls in America are empty. Nobody shops that way. Everybody's doing everything online now. And yeah, I thought that was interesting because people still shop online here. There's lots of online delivery services, but you want to go out, want to go out your legs, walk around the mall, get some ice cream, that sort of thing. So it's needed to be online. I think that's an interesting concept because online you can launch for really like a low cost. And if you look at Elon Musk made $300 million selling a product he had no team to build and no factory to make. He pre-sold for $1,000 down. Hey, let me get this message in front of you. If you want a car like this, put $1,000 down and then I'll deliver them in 2-3 years. And he did 300 million in sales and used that. So I think that's a really valuable tip. Like you just casually said this, like you maybe want to try online first, but for the listeners, I think there's real value and wisdom in that, in the sense of just, you have to be able to find your target market, make some offers, talk to some people and see if you can pre-sell something. Cause I even with your ornaments, you pre-sell them, don't you? You don't make a batch, or was it both?
I make a batch, but I have collectors. I have a list of collectors that buy them every year.
Collectors.
Yeah. And going back to Elon Musk, did you know that he studied at Queen's University here in Kingston?
I do, yes, he did in his freshman year for engineering. He worked. So for those of you that don't know, Queen's University is in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, where Cindy and I know each other from, where I grew up. And Queen's University's, one of their claim to fame is they used to have the solar car that would win all the races between different universities. And Elon Musk did his freshman year at university there before going and finishing school in the States. So yeah, that's a little, I'm surprised you know that. Most people even in Kingston don't even know that. And I'm like, hey, represent Kingston, what?
Yeah.
But I love what you said that you have collectors. So you have a product that has built-in repeat sales. I think that's a really important lesson for people as well. If you're selling something, is there a way? I know when I first started I published a couple of books on Amazon, and when I first got into it, people were talking about how keep them in a series if you can, because then if somebody buys the third or fourth in the series, there's incentive for them to go get the first ones. Whereas if all the books are standalones, there's no thread. Yeah, I think that's really powerful.
A lot of my clients for the ornaments love that they come wrapped and ready. So a lot of employers will buy them for all of their employees and they're done. And I deliver them and they're wrapped and they're pretty and everyone loves them. And
right. So you go the extra mile. So you really understand in some ways, what you're selling. You're not just, here's the gift. That's a function of market research. Like, because nobody else is, right? I got to go to the mall or even online. I got to pick it. I don't know if it's going to be nice, blah, 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 blah.
Right, I got to get packaging and I have to,
Right. Someone's got to wrap it. So just that little bit of that.
Yeah.
So over the years, having seen people like me and many others What are some of the greatest mistakes that you see other entrepreneurs making?
Jumping in too fast without doing their
Mm,
research,
mm,
without having a thorough business plan. Yeah, market research is really important.
super important. Yeah.
You know what you're getting into before you get into it.
Yeah. That's huge. It's huge. And I think it's important for some of the people. I'm going to pull up because I think I want to give, if I can, some tips on how to do good market research because there's a lot of companies. Like if you look at Blockbuster, Netflix is a really good example. Blockbuster was a $6 billion company. They could have hired any expert that they wanted. They could have developed any technology that they wanted. They even had an opportunity to buy Netflix at some point, and they were uninterested in it. They were like, nah, whatever. This is just going to blow over. Meanwhile, fast forward, Netflix ended up driving Blockbuster into the ground. And that was because Blockbuster got the builders, the founders built it, and then the managers came in and were trying to run it and scale it. And they had to disconnect with the market. You know,
Hmm.
like most people, when they get a movie, it's because I want to relax. I want to sit down and take a break. So if I've been standing and cutting hair for 8 hours, 12 hours a day, I don't want to go drive to a place and walk down this aisle of infinite decisions to try to figure out which one out of these 40 options I want, to then take home and then get charged money if I forget to go there to that place again right on time. Whereas with Netflix, it was like ordering pizza in the beginning. Here's a catalog, just call us up, we'll deliver it to your house, and then we'll come pick it up when you're done. That's so straightforward, right? That's so straightforward. So the market research is really important. That's the same thing with newspapers. Newspaper subscriptions used to be considered rivers of money or rivers of gold. And then it started drying up and they lost connect. And see, we're even seeing it happen again. People are losing trust in mainstream media, right? It's not there. There's a disconnect for why are we tuning in? We're not dumb idiot slaves. And if you betray our trust, we're going to move on if you fail to serve that issue. So on the research that we did, for those that don't know, in 2020, my team and I hired 7 researchers, spent about 50 grand to go through all the academic research on business success to figure out what are the critical success factors in business. And we learned 8 critical success factors. And one of them was market intelligence. And what makes good market intelligence? It's identifying the problem that you solve, right? Why it's a problem, who are affected, like the stereotypes. So if you have a lake, for example, there'll be a lot of different types of birds around the lake. Some birds will eat insects, some birds will eat fruits and berries, some birds will eat fish, some birds will eat other birds. So what is the stereotype of the person you're serving? Population size estimates. So this is an important one too, trying to get an estimate for what's the potential possibly, their demographics, psychographics. You need to know the cost of not fixing it, what the pain is to a certain extent. And you should know your top 10 competitors and look at their sales data, their locations, their target market, even buy their stuff, see their offers and price points. And then you can look up industry benchmarks like ad performance. So if you are doing advertising, how well should your ads be performing? What kind of revenue are they doing? And then of course, what kind of technology and trends are coming out so you can stay on top of that. So Cindy, now what habits do you feel have been really powerful for you? Obviously it's not a fluke. It's not an overnight success. You've been in the game for a long time. Do you feel that there's certain habits that have helped keep you in the game?
I think when I started out, I just wanted to offer excellent customer service to anyone who needed or wanted my services. And then I learned to really hone who my target market is. So what's the saying that 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients?
Yes.
And so really connecting with those 20% of your clients is what really grows your business. So trying to please everyone dilutes your energy, and really focus on that 20%.
Cindy is dropping knowledge today. That is fantastic. Now, how does someone maybe figure that out? Is there how would they know? They would just know? Do they have to look at the numbers? Is it?
I suppose how I did it, I was in business for a year or two and noticing the similarities between my clients that were in most often or that were my most raving fans. Yeah.
Got it. And so you just started trying to focus on them and even have them refer their friends.
Yeah, or really understanding what problem you can solve for them or what you can offer them. So for me, it was mostly 40 to 60-year-old women many were self-employed, independent, and they would often want something designed that inspired them somehow or represented something significant in their life.
Mm, mm.
And so that's really fun to do. I call them Go Girl rings,
What
where
are low girl?
Go Girl.
Oh, go girl. There we go. Go
Yeah.
girl.
So you wear it on the opposite hand of a wedding band. But a lot of my clients would inherit jewelry from favorite aunts, grandmothers, mothers, and I would make one ring that has the stones from all of the mothers and the women in their lives.
Mm.
So it empowers them to know that they have the energy and spirit of all the women in their lives on their hand at all times
That is
when
a
they need
powerful,
inspiration.
that is a powerful product. Channeling the power of your ancestors into a talisman that you'll wear on your hand that will protect you through good days and bad. And it'll,
Yeah.
and it's very durable.
One of my favorite projects, I had a client in and she was an only child and she'd lost both of her parents. And her parents were married almost 60 years. And she wanted me to melt down their rings and make her a right hand ring. And after she told me her parents' love story, I said to her, I can't melt these down. I don't want to burn off the energy and the love. Your parents wore these rings for almost 60 years. So what I did was I took her dad's wedding band, and if you heat up a ring, you can actually compress it to make it smaller.
Okay.
So I just kept heating it and compressing it to make it fit her. So it was the same ring that her dad always wore. And then I took the back band part of her mom's ring and soldered it across into a little swirl. And then I inlaid her mom's diamonds into her dad's wedding band. So it looked like a brand new modern ring with no claws and nice and smooth, but they were the exact rings her parents wore.
That is so powerful.
So she had her parents with her on her finger.
That is magical. That is magical.
And then it didn't cost her very much either because I didn't need to add any gold. I didn't need to do anything. I used the exact rings and it was only maybe 8 hours of labor.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That is so fantastic. Now, what do you feel was there ever anything that kind of held you back that you felt like that once you figured out things were easier?
Once I figured out it was easier. I'd have to think about that.
Yeah, okay.
I think once I understood who my target market was for and how to offer services to them, like things really started to grow.
Did you test different kind of front end? Like, how did you get new people in the door? Were there different kinds of front end offers? Was it just, hey, I'm here? Or was it showing your portfolio? Or I imagine there maybe was a crawl, walk, run into the relationship with you before they bring in the whole box of jewels that they got at home.
Yeah, I would do shows sometimes, and even just meeting people at shows. I recall meeting a young man, and he had just moved back to Kingston and hadn't lived there in quite some time. And all we did was chat about growing up here and how wonderful it is here. And he had no interest in any jewelry, but we connected and had this great conversation. And then many years later, he was ready to propose. And he contacted me to say, I need a ring. And I recall how great it was chatting with you, and I trust you. And when I got to make his engagement ring.
So staying in touch.
Well, and I feel honored to help people create pieces that are meaningful like that.
Yeah.
A lot of my pieces are very sentimental.
Yeah. I think you have beautiful stories too. It's not like you've got lots of stories. It sounds like there's a lot of storytelling going on.
Yeah.
It's not just the product, it's the story behind it.
Right.
If you were to show me this ring and be like, oh, it's a nice ring. But when you talk about the story, like my favorite project and our mom and dad were together for 60 years. And that story is I'm getting emotional here. I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to see this ring now. Yeah.
There's been many times where I've been working on a piece and knowing how much it means to my client, where I'm like a little choked up while I'm filing the metal.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're really doing business with love.
Yes, absolutely.
What a great way to approach it. What a great way to approach it.
Yeah. And I think most artists, we're creating art because we need to be creating art like we need oxygen. So it's not a choice. It's just what we need to do.
Now, how about pricing and charging for your art? I think that might be a challenge some people face.
Yes, I definitely struggled with that because I always wanted to give the best price I could. And then without contemplating if something goes wrong and you end up having to put 12 more hours into something and you thought it would only take you 3.
Right.
And then you've already quoted. So there were many projects where I lost money on. And then you don't want to overcharge either. So yeah, that was difficult to find a medium ground to be able to quote.
Do you give like a 2-step quote? Look, this is the quote I think it's going to be, but this is the worst case scenario quote. And hopefully, do you do anything like that? Or
I do an average on do an average on an estimate of how long something will take me. And now that
Mm.
I'm doing it long enough, I have more knowledge on exactly how difficult
How to
it might
price
be.
it. Would you have any tips for someone else that maybe is trying to sell their art, but in the same, how to approach it or how to juggle that? Or
I mean, with say like a painter where you completed the piece and then you're selling it, it's easier to record how long it takes you. But I would say to any artist, when you're first starting to create things, time yourself and see how long it really does take.
mm,
Because
mm.
I'll often think, oh, that'll only take me 3 hours, and then sometimes it only takes me an hour and a half, but other times it takes me 8 hours. Keeping a log on how long that really takes.
And I think this is important because this is what you're selling. It's not a digital product, so you can't copy paste. It's not a factory made product. It's not even a farm product because like farmers, they rate like the goat's going to grow up on its own. You know what I mean? Like the pig's
Right.
going to grow up on its own. The plants are going to grow. You really have to focus and invest your energy in order to create the thing. So I think that's, I think it's a unique model in that sense. That's part of what the value. It's almost like the NFTs, the NFT craze. The NFT craze was about the uniqueness and the scarcity, the rarity of these items. But for you, it's that, but also there's like blood, sweat, and tears that go into making this stuff.
And even with the gold market, gold has really gone up and down since I
Mm-hmm.
started as a goldsmith. So when I first started, gold was only $300 and something an ounce. And
Okay.
I think as of yesterday, it was 2,500.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it jumped. I closed my store in December of 2010. I think it was around 900 an ounce. And 6 months later, it was double that.
Wow.
So
And
that's
so,
difficult too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to pass that on to the end consumer. You can't be like, hey, I'm going to eat this extra $900 per ounce for you.
And like sometimes gold can change quickly. So if you've quoted, I have to put a timeline on a quote. It's usually this quote is good for 2 weeks. So if you give me the go ahead, that's the price in the next 14 days. But 14 days from now, it could be different. I
So,
often found too, when there was an election in the US, gold would always go higher. So
really?
I'd have people, yeah, I'd have people come in and I'd say, you know what, wait till after the election because gold's going to come down probably $500-600 an ounce.
That is good to know. That is like a
Yeah.
golden nugget for sure of this
Yeah.
call. For any of those investor-minded people, get some gold before the election, sell it, and then buy some more after. Yeah, that's a good. Cindy just dropping bombs left and right. There we go. And where do you think the future of this industry is going? There's a lot of digital art being made now, but that might just make like physical items more
Right.
valuable.
Yeah, the designing part might be easier for people to come up with their own design. But I would say the biggest difference is lab grown diamonds as far as diamond rings.
Lab-grown
I think
diamonds.
Pandora has now announced that they're exclusively only going to use lab grown diamonds. It's much
Mm,
more eco-friendly and
right.
they're beautiful and they're less expensive. But then that's going to create a real market for quote unquote real diamonds.
Right.
Lab grown diamonds are chemically exactly the same, but natural diamonds from the ground
Right. That
uh,
have that story behind
are
it.
going to perhaps go up in price because they're going to become more rare.
Right. Right. Which is so
So I don't know what,
fascinating.
yeah, I don't know how that's going to affect De Beers because I know De Beers is now selling lab grown diamonds as well. And they control the market where they'd have, there's, yeah, they
Yeah. Yeah.
controlled how many diamonds they released into the market to keep the price high.
Right.
Within my career in the last 25 years, diamonds have come way down in price, probably more than half of what they were when I first
Really.
started.
Even
Yeah.
with inflation and all that.
Yep, because you could buy them online with no overhead.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
before
Right.
they were sold through dealers and then purchased by jewelers
You really
and
saw
then
the writing on the
retail.
wall. Is that why you closed down your retail store? Like you started to realize that you didn't necessarily need the physical location, that you could just phone call people and email them and you didn't necessarily have to have the store. Is that part of why?
I know my store was really, my business was doubling each year, but I gave birth to a baby girl
I remember
and
I was
wanted to
there.
stay home. That's why I closed. But my intention was to
Uh,
return a year later. And then once she was starting to walk and so much more fun, I was
mhm.
like, I don't want to go back yet. So I
Right.
stayed home almost 4 years. And then I rented an art studio rather than have a retail space. So
Mm,
that's when I started selling my work online and it shows. And then I have a studio that clients can come to, but I'm not open set hours like I was with
mm,
retail.
mm,
And that
mm.
again was my parents did that so they could be home for my sister and I when we were young. And I was able to do the same for my daughter. So I didn't miss field trips, and I could volunteer at school, and I could be there as well as earn a living.
Yeah, can you speak to that a
Yeah.
little bit? I know that's a really big, obviously, I'm a bit ignorant to the trials and tribulations of being a woman juggling pregnancy and having a newborn with your career. I watched Kathy, my partner, she grew a six-figure business from, I think from she started around when she was 3 months pregnant to 2 years later, she was doing six figures fresh out of university. But so I saw that, but can you maybe speak to that? Are there any tips for women that are trying to juggle both the demands of being a mom, which is one of the most important, if not the most important job in the world, with trying to survive in society, so to speak, as a career woman?
I know a lot of other mothers who you have to do whatever's right for you, whatever feels right for you. And so a lot of
Mm.
moms needed to get to work. They needed to work and have the childcare available. And for me, again, with the jewelry, I wanted it done myself, and I wanted it done right. And I'm the same way with motherhood. I, I, I did not feel comfortable with putting her in day. She was in daycare a little bit for
Mhm.
socialization, but
Right.
I didn't want to miss any of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It
was an
goes so
older
fast.
mom, and I didn't want to miss a thing, and I didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So you really had your business kind of support your lifestyle. It wasn't about becoming a bazillionaire. You
Right.
managed to get,
In
yeah.
those early years, I always say to people, my maternity leave was firing myself and getting nothing, but it was totally worth it. Yeah.
You own your own home. Like I said, you work the hours you want to work. You've got a list of clients that when you announce that you're creating something, they show up to buy it. So I think there's a lot of power in that. And there's, as they say, I don't know who's listening to this, but Judas got the money. If you know the story, Judas got the money. Judas got 30 pieces of silver to sell out Jesus's location, and they arrested him and then had him executed on the cross. And while it was unfolding, Judas realized that the silver wasn't, it was just a pile of metal in his hands. It wasn't going to give him what he really wanted. So it's not about being a bazillionaire per se. It's from the story that you've just told. You basically designed the life that you wanted. You've really helped make meaningful changes in people's lives. You really become a confidant and someone that they can trust, building a community for over 25 years. You've been successfully living life on your terms. You decided you wanted to be a mom and make that the priority of your life. You managed to do it. Again, you own your own home. You're a self-made woman. I think you're in a lot of ways a great role model.
Thank you. It's
You
my
have
25th year this year.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you doing this year in order to commemorate that?
I'm planning a big show, but I haven't set the location yet or the
Okay.
details. But I want to design a few special pieces and have a little gathering and invite my clients and friends to come and celebrate with me.
And if anybody listening to this wants to know how to get in touch with you or to take a look at your work, where would they go?
My website is cindyj.ca, cindyj.ca.
That's a great URL.
Yes.
Great URL. It's like you got friends that are in internet marketing or something and they make websites. So cindyj.ca. That's fantastic.
Yes.
And so again,
I'm in the process of switching my website over to Shopify. Yeah, it's in progress.
yeah, that's fine. So go check out cindyj.ca, take a look at her work. And so now where do you think things are going in the future? Like we mentioned, like you did mention online and that more. How about for you? Where does your future hold? Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I want to shift more to the online shop and offering pre-made jewelry, as well as still offering custom design and repair work. But I like to build a business that I can hand down to my daughter someday as well. With the pre-made pieces, they're molded, and she's also quite a craftsperson herself. She's going to be 13 this year, and she makes some really neat pieces already.
That's fantastic.
So maybe that's what she'll want to do.
Yeah, maybe mother-daughter
Yeah.
business venture.
Yeah, she sells her work sometimes at the shows that I do.
That's
So
so
she's
cool.
doing pretty well. Yeah,
What a
she might
great
have a
lesson for
Etsy
her.
store by next year.
Yeah. I was going to
Yeah,
say, are you doing, it sounds like you're trying to encourage the spirit of entrepreneurship in her.
for sure. Yes.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
how?
she recognizes that a lot of other mothers that are stuck in a cubicle can't be there.
Mhm,
There was
mhm.
often times where other mothers would call me to go get their kids at school because they're sick, but they couldn't leave. And so I'd run to the school and bring their little one home and get them soup and
Aw,
yeah.
that's so nice. That's so nice. So now, do you feel like there's any best advice that you got in your career or as running a business or trying to juggle business and life?
One of the greatest was to learn who your client is, who's right for you and who isn't.
Mm.
So when someone makes you feel not comfortable and you don't feel right, listen to your gut. Yeah.
Mm.
And
Mm.
you know who you connect with and who elevates you and who gives you a bad feeling.
Right.
So as like I said, if a client seemed to feel uncomfortable, I would just say, you know what, I also feel uncomfortable, so let's not go forward with this project.
Yeah. That's probably
Mhm.
part of why you get that ease of doing business with you. And even the ease of not doing business with you probably brought you a lot of referrals. I think that's really
Right,
powerful. I think that's so
right.
powerful because a lot of
Mhm.
times in business, people are really focused on themselves. What can I get? How many clients do I have? How much money am I making this year or this month or whatever? But it sounds like for you, like you really have a customer centric business in the sense of not just, knowing who your target market is and your best customers, but it sounds like you really would try to put them first, give them a fair deal, give them a heads up on the quotes, all that stuff. No wonder you've survived for 25 years. Some of this I almost feel is stuff that people should be learning in kindergarten. Do you know what I mean? Play nice with your
Right.
friends, don't
It's a
lie.
great book. There's an excellent book called All I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten
Yeah,
by
yeah.
Robert Fulghum. It's an excellent book.
Yeah. But it's one
Yeah.
thing to have common knowledge, another thing to actually do it and live it and breathe it.
It's a
Yeah.
bit of a learning curve on how to, so I really mastered that skill in a brick and mortar store where you're in person making eye contact and connecting with your clients and understanding the meaningful sentiments they have to their pieces. That's difficult to translate digitally, at least for me. I'm just in that learning curve now,
Right.
25 years into my career. And yet I've had some sales I've shipped things to other countries even that people have bought online. And then their feedback is really wonderful. There was a lady, I make these cuff bracelets. I use a magnolia leaf and I press the leaves in wax and then I peel the leaf out of the wax. And so it leaves the imprint of all of the veins
Mm.
and the pattern of the leaf. They're really beautiful. And there's a woman who raises magnolia trees in southern US, and she was elated to find them and buy one and how meaningful it was, and that I think it was her grandparents that started this.
Farm.
And she told me the whole story of how like they grow magnolia trees for a living and how meaningful it was to her. So it is still possible to connect to people
Yeah.
that are far away.
Yeah, yeah. You have to really figure out what's important to them. And sometimes like that, I don't think that was intentional. I don't think you did market research and you were like, I'm a
Well, no.
but through your 10,000 iterations of making different products and things and having things
Mm.
available and knowing, I think she probably still fits into your demographic. She's not no offense to any of them listening, but she's not like a 19-year-old teeny bopper. You know what I mean? Like she still
Right. And
fits.
again, she's my target market because
Right.
she's an entrepreneur, she's an independent woman, and she wants to wear a piece of jewelry that has meaning to her
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that represents something important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cindy,
Hmm.
this has been such a great call. You've given so many nuggets of wisdom here. People that are interested, go check out cindyj.ca. Cindy, I want to ask before we wrap up, because I want to respect your time and I got to take my little one to school. But is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you?
Not that I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah, you did such a great job. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge and wisdom and some of your stories with my audience. I know that you've got your own following, your own family, your own audience that you could be sharing with. So thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And I'm just so grateful that we've been friends for so long.
Thank you so much for having me, and I feel the same. Same, 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 same.